Righto! Exciting times! We have a guest today. This One Time in Real Estate, Season 2, Episode number 37. My friend Sarah Shoy, my brother real estate partner, Neil Gelman. Neil's going to join us and talk a little bit of luxury listing, working with luxury sellers, preparing luxury homes, getting paid, specializing in the luxury market. What do you got for us, Sarah?
I'm so excited to have Neil today, and he's going to go over Confessions of a Luxury Listing Agent. I know you have a lot of interesting stories, I'm sure, over the years, Neil. Yeah. And I guess the thing that listings are a huge buzzword in real estate right now. The more listings you have, ultimately, the more buyers you'll have as well. So obviously very important. They've always been. So I think it's interesting to hear your story, where you started, how you've kind of found that niche of luxury real estate specifically, and then why you think you're so successful. Just have a conversation.
No, absolutely. That. So I've been in business for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And which is crazy. And started out like everybody, buying and selling, working at every single price point. And then really over the last 10 years, I've specialized in the luxury side, specifically really working with sellers only. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, I'll do a few buys here and there for some close friends, but the majority of them, I'm just working on the sell side and then partnering with our buyer's agents and collaborating with them.
Which is awesome. And you kind of also specialize in certain areas, which is
probably I basically, so I lived in Clayton for the last 15 years, your city for the 10 prior, and so I basically cover the entire 40 corridor, going as far south as Sunset Hills, etc. But I have a pretty good pulse on the market on the luxury.
And I think the interesting thing to note is you started out representing buyers, sellers, any price point. And ultimately, as Sarah and I have discussed over time, look, early on you're going to go wide. Early on you're going to go wide so that you can cut your teeth. You're going to go wide so that you can learn areas. But over time, there's nothing like specializing in an area. Sarah lives in Sunset Hills. You can ask Sarah, not even being prepared for the market per se, or prepared for this conversation, are you familiar with XYZ home on XYZ street? Of course you're going to know. So why not sell local? Why not know the areas, work in the areas? It so happens that we've specialized in this luxury in Clayton, surrounding where Neil lives, where I live in Chesterfield. You also go to areas that have the price points that you want. So one of the things that we've been blessed in is that we work in the areas that we live, because it's very difficult to, for example, to do luxury on a one-off home in an area that the average price point's $400,000 and you're representing the $1 million seller. So with that being said, you've made a name, career in the luxury. How'd you do it?
So, number one, I've been in sales literally my entire life, almost 40 years. I like the belly-to-belly aspect of selling. I love helping people. In addition, not to say that other price points are significantly different, but you're dealing with, in luxury, in most cases, a very sophisticated buyer, and seller. Somebody who's had multiple transactions over the years, which can add to the challenge of it as well, because on the luxury side, the seller has higher expectations. And, as you and I talked earlier, in the luxury market, every house is different. Every seller is different. So you really have to be a chameleon. And you can't have that, when you meet with a luxury seller, you can't have a canned, memorized pre-listing appointment. I've always prided myself, and I think it's important, really at any price point, to not go in there as a salesperson, but go in there as a consultant. And what I tell people when I meet luxury sellers is that I want you to think of me just like your financial advisor, your medical advisor, and maybe even your psychiatrist, as I'm the expert for you when it comes to the real estate side.
Yeah, I love that. I love the word chameleon because I think that that's so important, because I'm sure in your experience there's differing like parts of you that are needed in different parts of the transaction, especially like you said, psychiatrist, or there's stressful parts of the transaction, and that like with any price point. And then there's probably more fun parts of the transaction where you get to help them prepare their home, which I know you're really good at. And so to be able to be a chameleon and match what they need in that time is critical.
Yeah, I mean, as we always tell people, I mean, the first thing you want to understand is why are they selling, where are they going, what are they doing? And at the end of the day, everybody has a different reason, whether they're moving for family, whether they have a health issue, whether it's a divorce situation, or it's a financial situation. So being a chameleon, you don't know what you're going to encounter until you meet them.
Mm-hmm.
I also, when I hear the word chameleon and I understand what you just said about the differing reasons why people are moving, there's also obviously upsizing, downsizing, there's good news. But when I hear the word chameleon, I also think of empathy. You have to be empathetic to their situation. Sarah and I have talked about it on a previous podcast about being empathetic, meeting them where they're at, having their agenda at the front, not your agenda. So again, I think that your relationship, and look, you've studied, you can talk to them. I think that if somebody's going to get into the luxury and they're not used to the luxury market, I know Sarah is huge. I want to get into the luxury market. My highest price points are $500,000 that I've sold. What the heck do I do to hop right into the $1 million?
So I think a big part of it, number one, I've always said this to every new agent or every struggling agent, what gives you credibility is your knowledge, your market knowledge. If you want to become an expert in an area, in a specific price point, study that market so that you can talk the talk with everybody. Because you will be out-talked by a luxury seller in a specific area if you don't know your craft.
So because I remember actually, I just had a total flashback to when I started in 2015, and you would do agent opens every week. And you were there for 2 hours just getting to know the area. And I remember I held one of your opens in U City, and you were able to talk specifically about sales that had happened on the street. Because back then it was, well, we still do it today, but call the listing agent, understand the home in further detail before you hold it open, and also any comparables that have sold. And Neil, you were able to rattle that off. How did you get there?
I think it's making sure before you go to a meeting, before you go to an open house, that you've studied, you've done your research, and you come armed with ammunition. No different than I met with somebody last night on about a price reduction. I came with 7 different CMAs, even outside of that particular school district area, just to show them it's not a lack of buyers. It is they're passing on that house. So I think it's coming there and being prepared, being able, like I said, to talk. And, the other thing is when you meet people, you bring up an open house.
Yep.
You, again, don't know what their situation is. And you just have to act in curiosity and not be a salesperson. Find out about them before you start trying to sell them.
I think it's also very important, and I think from your experience, you've dealt with all different categories of wealth, not wealth, but the beautiful thing is that you're not intimidated by the individual that owns $1 million, $2 million, $3 million home. I see that intimidation factor as one of the most limiting beliefs, in that those people put their pants on differently. Those people earn their money differently. Don't get me wrong, they maybe today earned it differently, but at some point they did the exact same thing you're doing. They still have the same decisions we all make. They're just in a different league, possibly. They have a different point of reference. But I think the number one thing that you can do after education, after being their trusted advisor, like you say, like their financial advisor, is not being intimidated. How do you recommend somebody?
I truly believe that you gain confidence by gaining knowledge. I know I just said that, but I truly believe that. If you're meeting with a luxury seller in a specific area and you feel confident that at any question they ask you, any house they ask you about, you can answer that, it doesn't matter if you've been in the business for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. We all started out at 1 year, right? So I do believe if you understand the area and you understand the market that you're interviewing for, that should give you confidence. Now, some people, I believe, I've been in sales my whole life, so I naturally have confidence. But if I feel uncomfortable if I don't understand an area or a price point. Like, I can't go somewhere and have the talk if I don't feel confident that I have the knowledge for that.
Yeah. All right, so I have a fun question. So when let's say you've gone to the pre-list and it's going really great, and you think, okay, they're gonna sign with me. Do you have like a close you use?
Yeah, I always say before I leave every single appointment, is there anything that happened today or I said that would prevent you from doing business with us?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
And what do they typically?
They will either say that if there's any objection, it may be a commission objection. It may be that all of a sudden I used this close a month ago and they said, oh, I have a really good friend in the business. They didn't share that with me. They kept it in their back pocket. I immediately overcame that objection and the next day we signed paperwork.
Yeah, that's a good question.
By asking that question, they're going to tell you their objections. If you don't get anything, I assume. Yeah. The other thing is, I know we're not supposed to use the word assume, but throughout my entire listing presentation, I assume that we're going to do business. Everything that I say, this is how I'm going to market your house. This is what we're going to do. This is what our photographers. So I assume that I've already got the business, not in a cocky way, but in a confident way.
All right. We didn't even tell you, but this was season 2, episode 37, part 1. We're cutting it. We're going to film part 2 because Neil did so great on part 1. So look for season 2, episode number 38 or 37, part 2. Hang on. Wait till next week. We got ya.